Hi, baby.
Hi, baby. Alright, so here's the plan. A 6-hour session today. I'm going to play another 12 hours tomorrow, and then maybe 10 hours the next day. Alright, so that's 28 hours. I'm going to put in 28 hours in the next 3 days. I'm just going to be playing at a couple different casinos. I think I'm going to go to Gardens, and I'm also going to play at Commerce, and then I think I'm going to check out Hollywood Park too.
Okay. You're going to crush it. I know it. And I can't wait to celebrate your birthday with you.
Alright, I love you, and I'll talk to you soon, baby.
I'll talk to you soon. Drive safe.
Alright, bye.
Bye.
Just got to Gardens Casino. This is actually my first time here. I'm hoping to put in a 6-hour session. Over the next 2.5 days, I want to play 28 hours, only a hourly goal. And if I hit a certain number, I set it at 6,000, I'm going to reward myself. But the 6,000 is not a goal. The 28 hours is the goal. So gonna head on in there and get started. It's almost 9 o'clock, so we got a lot of work to do. It's somewhere in the neighborhood of 5 o'clock in the morning right now. I had a really interesting hand that I want to cover, but I'm gonna do it after I go to sleep. Alright guys, it is a new day. I'm feeling refreshed. I got 6 hours of sleep. There's a big hand from last night that I wanted to talk about before we get back on it today. Starts with me opening up the action with ace-4 of diamonds in the cutoff, the button flat, and the big blind defends. Both of these players were actually very active with 3-betting and 4-betting. So when they just flat pre-flop, I can start to narrow down their hands immediately to marginal strength hands. The flop comes down ace, king, 4. When the action checks over to me, I continue for $55. The button calls $55, and now the big blind check raises to $255. And the reason why this is so interesting is because, like I mentioned, this guy has been playing very aggressive pre-flop, and because of the positional dynamics, I know that he would not be flatting a hand like aces, kings, ace, king. So I can eliminate those hands from his range, which now heavily weights him towards bluffs, because the only value hands that I lose to, first of all, is pocket fours. So that leaves either worse value, king 4 or a random ace that he's check raising, or hands like queen jack or other just air balls. So I can safely call here knowing that I'm ahead pretty much all the time. So I do just that, I make the call, and the button folds. The turn comes to 8 of spades and he keeps betting. He sizes up. He sizes for $680. I have around 1,100 more additional after the 680. Ultimately, I decided, since the 8 was a spade and it put a flush draw out there, and that he could definitely have a hand like queen jack of spades and ace x of spades was a possibility, I decided to go ahead and jam it all in, knowing that the only hand I lose to is pocket fours. So when I jam it all in and he doesn't snap call, I take a sigh of relief inside, knowing that I have the best hand here. He thinks about it for a really long time, and he says, wow, is this a super cooler? And when he says that, I'm like, maybe he really does have pocket fours, and he just knows that I'm the only one in this hand that can have aces or kings. So I actually get a little bit uncomfortable that he's nit rolling me with pocket fours, and he ends up making the fold with ace 4. So we get him off of a chop. I'm ready to get back at it today. I'm gonna try a new casino today. Let's try Hollywood Park and see how it goes. If I don't like it, I'll move over to the Commerce, I'll move over to the Bike, I'll try a different place. So let's get to it. I got 14 hours to get in today. All right guys, time for the mega grind. Let's get it. Hey, what's up guys? Just leaving Hollywood Park. To say that I'm struggling would be an understatement. Things have not been going well on this trip. I was able to get in about 4 hours of play. It's 8 o'clock right now. I finally got in a game at 4 o'clock. To give you an idea, I left to come play poker at 12:30, and it took me until 4 o'clock to get in a game. Partially because I was driving across town, partially because I had to wait a long time once I got there. But I got tired of waiting, so I hopped into the 5-5 and I got stacked for $500 in the first orbit, playing a hand very aggressively. Luckily, I got moved to 5-10, which was what I was there for, obviously. And it was just a terrible game. Just wasn't able to get anything going. Finally, towards the end of the session, there was a really loose player that was limping into every hand and calling every raise. So this is something that I talked about in a previous episode of the vlog, where when you have a player like this, you want to exploit them raising his limps. So the game's 5-10-20. He limps in late position and I'm on the button with 10-8 offsuit. I make it 100. The blinds fold and he calls, so we're heads up. So this is exactly the scenario that I want. I have 10-8 offsuit, not a great hand, but I want to be in position heads up against this guy. So the flop comes 6-3 deuce, all spades, and I have 10-8 with the 8 of spades. He checks it over to me and I decide to check this one back. There's definitely a case for betting here because I have 10 high and I can't win with 10 high. And if I'm gonna start bluffing, I should probably bluff now. I do have a flush draw, I do have backdoor straight draw. I think I like bet a little bit better, but I end up checking it because I plan on doing a delayed C bet here. If he doesn't show any strength on the turn comes a 3. So now there is a 4 card straight on the board and he checks it over to me again. I feel like now with 10 high, this is definitely a board I can stab with. Sure, I'm not gonna have many straights here, but I think that because of this player type, he's just gonna fold if he doesn't have anything. And if he has like the ace high flush draw, he'll call once. If he has the king high flush draw, he'll call. So I'll be able to double barrel if no spade comes on the river. So I put out a small bet of 130 and he makes the call. We're gonna have to evaluate what comes on the river. The river is an interesting card. It makes me top pair. It comes the 8 of clubs. Now that I have a pair, I can for sure check this one back. I'm thinking that if I just bet tiny, it'll accomplish a couple things. I'll get value from ace high if he wants to call with ace high, or any pair that's on the board, say ace 6. I think he'll call with that hand as well. So it's super thin for sure. And the second thing I want to accomplish with this bet is I don't want to show my cards because I don't want people to know that I'm isolating his limp with 10-8 offsuit, because then the other good players in the game are going to see how wide I'm isolating his limps with. Definitely should be checking back here, but I bet 100 into 500-ish, and he calls fairly quickly with the ace-5, so he had a straight. So after this hand, I think I walked out of there down around 3,000. So for the trip, on this LA trip, I'm about 12 hours in and I'm down around $3,500 on the trip. Things have just not been going well. I've been in tough games and I'm struggling for sure. So I'm gonna go to one of my favorite restaurants, have a meal by myself, collect my thoughts. You know, things have been tough. Like since I got back from Mexico, I lost over 5K in a session recently. So I'm down around 9K right now in my last couple sessions, which is a big hit for me for sure. I live life dangerously, and I think that most cash game players do. We elevate our lifestyle to a certain hourly rate that we expect. And if there's any lapse in work ethic or there's any splurging and spending, which has happened in the last couple weeks, first of all, I spend a lot more time vlogging now. And second of all, I've taken a lot of trips. I got a trip to Macau coming up. I got a trip to Tokyo coming up. And I didn't play very much in the last 2 weeks, so lapse in work ethic. It's a recipe for running your bankroll down to a very unsafe level, which is where it's at now. So I got to regroup, get my mind right. We'll catch up with you guys after I have a nice meal at Tokayo Organica. I'm feeling refreshed. I'm feeling ready to go. Turn this LA trip around, off to the bike, and we'll play by ear. If there's nothing happening at the bike in the way of 5-10 no limit hold'em, I'll probably go over to Commerce, LA's friendliest. No sarcasm there. All right guys, we got this, let's get it. All right, guys, it's Thursday. It's the last day of my trip in LA. Last time I talked to you guys, I was leaving Tocayo Organica, walking into the bike, and my mindset was different. I was ready to turn things around. I popped into the first game that had an open seat. That was 5-5. I played until the 5-10 seat opened up. I won a couple bucks playing 5-5 in about an hour. And then I took my seat in 5-5. It was a really good game, action game, loose game. And that will be evident by this first hand that I talk about. The straddle is on in this hand, 5-10, 20, and a post for 20 in late position. I look down at ace-king suited in early position, and I go ahead and raise it up to 80. The button calls, and everyone else gets out of the way and folds. I have around 2,100 in front of me, and the opponent in the hand covers me. The flop comes Queen Jack 6 rainbow with one club, and I decide to check this one over to the button and evaluate. He puts out a bet of $145. Given that I have two overs, I have the backdoor flush draw, I have a straight draw, and he could be bluffing. He also could have hands like 9-10 or King 10. I decide to make the call. The turn comes the best card in the deck. It comes the 10 of clubs. So we make the nuts. We have a straight, we have Broadway, and we also have the ace high flush draw. So since we don't have the lead in this hand, I continue to check, and the button now puts out a bet of $210. I decide to check raise here, and I make it $710. This is where the hand gets very interesting. He thinks about it for maybe 30 seconds. He goes like this and shows the queen, is holding it like he's about to muck it. It's obvious he's going to be folding. So I wait a couple seconds, and before he tosses his cards into the muck, I just decide something. I just say, well, you know what? It can't hurt. It can't hurt to try to add a little speech play here and show a card. I'm just going to let the audio play, and I'll caption it so you guys can see what happens, because it's pretty bizarre.
You got it, man. It was 7-8-5. He had 6-9. He flopped it.
Yeah.
And it turned
Can you beat King Queen of clubs?
Situation that, like,
Can it be King Queen
you
of
know,
clubs?
you had to call
Yeah, it was kind of
You can?
all in, but
What's it?
I didn't think you could beat King Queen of clubs.
yeah.
Yeah, but I don't think you have King Queen of clubs. I think you have Ace King. I think you got there, because I have Ace Queen.
Well, now you have to fold,
I do. Put it in here.
because you already told me what you have. That makes my job a lot easier.
The only hand that beats me is Ace King. Unless you're pocket kings, then I'm fucking screwed.
All in.
All in.
I didn't believe you.
So yeah, this is a very good result. He basically gave me $1,800 because I talked him into it. And there's simply no other way to put that. And I don't want to recommend this to people, but at the same time, he was seconds away from firing his cards into the muck. So in those types of situations, you don't really have much to lose. It's fine to start talking a little bit. Like I said, I don't recommend it, but you have to be 100% confident that, or 99% confident that he's about to toss his cards into the muck, which I was. Obviously, it worked out amazing for us because we double up right off the bat, and we are up $2,100 within a couple minutes of sitting down. Next big hand I play, I am in the small blind with King Queen. There is a limp, and then the cutoff makes it $80. This is 5-10, 20 again. I just decided to call here. The reason why I call is because the guy on my left is a very active player, and he's seeing a lot of flops, and I just want him in the pot. So I end up making the call. He calls, and then the limper calls. So we end up going 4 ways to a flop, which is gorgeous for us. It's King, Queen, Deuce with 2 diamonds. I don't have the betting lead in this hand, and I'm in the small blind, so I just decided to check this one over, and it ends up checking through. The turn comes at king, so we make a full house, best possible hand. I decide to now take the betting lead in this hand, and I bet out for $125. Player on my left, true to form, snap raises me to $400. The standard play here is to pretty much always call because we hold all of the good cards, and if he has a full house, let's say, or he has trips, we're going to be getting more money on the river. So I just decide to call here to keep all of his bluffs in, since he's definitely more heavily weighted towards bluffs. So when the river bricks off, no diamonds, no straight card, I decide to check it over to him, and he ends up checking it back with the 10-8 of diamonds. So he ends up having just 10 high. So after this hand, we are up to around $4,800, and the whole table agrees to switch the game to 10-20 so we can pay less rake. We're actually going to be paying a timed rake now. I look down at king, queen suited in middle position, and I make it $60. The button calls and the big blind defends. Flop comes queen 7-6 with 2 diamonds and a spade. So we flop top pair, backdoor flush draw. Checks to me, and I continue for $100. The button calls and the big blind folds. The turn is the 5 of diamonds, which is probably the worst card in the deck for us. I decide to check this one over. The button, who seems like a very good player, ends up putting out a bet of $260. And I think because my hand isn't going to improve here, and because he is a good player, I think that he's going to have me beat a fair amount of the time here. And if he doesn't have me beat, he is likely to be continuing on the river, because it looks like exactly what I have, a one pair type hand. So I decided to let this one go on the turn and just give him credit for having it. In this next hand, the under the gun player, the good player that I just spoke of, makes it $60, and we look down at ace jack of clubs in the cutoff. We end up making the call, the small blind calls, and the big blind defense, so we end up going 4 ways to a flop. The flop comes king 9-7 with 2 clubs and a diamond. The original razor checks, so it checks to us in position, and we go ahead and semi-bluff this one with ace high flush draw, and we bet $125. Small blind folds, big blind calls, original razor folds. The turn comes a 4 of diamonds, and I think that this is definitely a good spot to continue semi-bluffing, and I size up a little bit here, and I bet $340. What's great about the sizing that I use on the turn is that I think because of this sizing, he's going to be folding a lot of his second pairs. He's going to be continuing with his kings, and he's going to be continuing with his draws. So when he ends up making the call on the turn and the river bricks off for us, and we're just sitting here with ace high, and we have him narrowed down to king X type hands, or bricked draws, brick straight draws, brick flush draws, I think that the best play here is to check and take our showdown value, because we beat all of the missed draws, and it's going to be very hard to get him to fold a king in this game. If he had some middle pairs in his range, I would consider a large bet on the river, but because of our sizing on the turn, I think he folded all those hands. So we just check and take our showdown value here, and he says, you got it. So I show the ace jack and wrapped up the session on a positive note. Ended up winning in 10-20, like $400-ish. On the night at the bike, I ended up winning around $3,100, recovering the $2,900-ish loss that I had from Hollywood Park earlier in the day. So we ended up winning on the day a couple $100, still stuck on the trip, but I played for over 10 hours yesterday. Went according to plan as far as hours go, and today is the last day. I got a lot more hours to put in. I'm excited to get on the grind. I think the best place to go today is Commerce, because it's the safest bet for 5-10 action in the middle of the day on a Thursday. And then the plan is to head over to the bike, do commentary for the bike, and then we're off to Vegas in the morning. Stay tuned for the last day of LA grinding. Oh man, what a day, what a day. I'm actually at the bicycle casino now because I left the Commerce. Things went really well at the Commerce. Things went pretty good here at the bike too, and I'm really tired. I almost met my goal. I played around 26 hours. I wanted to play 28, so we did really well. I have some really big hands to catch you guys up on. I'm gonna go to bed and I'll fill you guys in on the hands tomorrow. Hey, what's up guys? I'm in Las Vegas, Nevada. I'm at my buddy Gary's house. You guys might remember him from episode 2. I've been here for about 4 days now and just been having a lot of fun. Haven't even gotten near the vlogging camera, but I got to catch you guys up on what happened in LA. I had a couple massive hands that I wanted to talk about. First of all, at Commerce, I sit down in a 1500 cap game, raise it up with pocket nines after there's been a limper to $50. Everyone folds, a limper calls. We end up going heads up to the flop. Flop is 9-8-6 with 2 diamonds. He checks it over to me and I continue for a bet of $80. He ends up making the call. The turn comes the ace which now puts 2 different flush draws out there. And he checks it over to me again, and I continue. I put out a bet of $250, and he makes the call again. The river is the queen of clubs, and he checks it over to me again. And while Jack 10 definitely gets there, this is the player type that if he did have Jack 10, he would be leading river. So I effectively have the nuts here. I don't think he ever has Jack 10. So I decide, because he called $250 on the turn, which was a very large bet, that he has a very high value hand. I'm thinking that he possibly has a lower set, or he possibly has aces up. So I go ahead and try to max value this hand, and I jam all in for close to $1,200, which is actually an over bet. And he thinks for quite a while and ends up making the call. So we bust him and start off instantaneously crushing close to $2,000 right off the bat. A couple hands later, there's a limp in early position, and I over limp pocket 5s. The button raises it up to $55. The big blind calls, the limper calls, and I go ahead and call. We end up going 4 ways to a flop. The flop is Jack 7-5 rainbow. Checks all the way to the button, and the button actually checks this one back. The turn comes the ace, which puts 2 diamonds on the board. And normally when I have a set in a raised pot and there's only one person left to act behind me, I'll just go ahead and lead on the turn here. I'll take the betting lead. But given that this card is so good for the button's range, I decide to check this one over to the button and gamble that he's going to value bet, or that he has an ace, or that he wants to bluff. And he puts out a bet of $200, which is a very large bet. The 2 players out of position fold, and I decide that because there's 2 diamonds on the board, and because he has an ace all day here, and he could be in hero call mode, that I'm for sure going to be check raising that. And because there are 2 diamonds on the board, I decide to make it pretty big. I make it $800, which could level him into calling with just an ace here. When he makes the call and the river bricks off completely, I move all in for $1,400. It doesn't take him too long to make the call. He has ace jack, so it's one of those cooler type situations. We're 30 minutes into the session and I'm up a ton of money already. I play a little bit longer and I end up cashing out for $4,200 profit in less than 4 hours of play. I think it was around 3 hours and 50 minutes. And I decided to head over to the bike because I was planning on doing some commentary over there. So we get in a second session of the day, also 5-10. This time I buy in for 3K. I end up playing a really big hand here at the bike that I wanted to talk about. Folds to me, and I'm on the button with King 8 of diamonds. I go ahead and raise it up to $30. The small blind calls and the big blind calls. The flop comes King Jack 8 rainbow. Both players check it over to me, and I put out a C bet of $50. The small blind calls, and the big blind now puts in a check raise. He makes it $225. I decide to flat here because I want to keep all of his bluffs in, and I want to invite the small blind to come along too. There's no flush draw on board, so I think it's pretty safe to call here. Definitely standard. The turn comes the King of clubs. He now checks it over to us, and because we have a full house and he's likely drawing to some sort of gutter ball or open ender, I just decide to check this one back and hope that he gets there on the river and then we'll lead. When the river comes the ace, it's actually the perfect card because Queen 10 is a likely holding for him. So when he leads $355, I block 8s full. I think that he would have bet that hand. He never has pocket jacks because he would have 3-bet me pre-flop. So I think it's specifically Queen 10. I decide on a sizing of $1,200. I think it might be a tad on the large size, but I think he has a straight here all day. And given that it's a button versus blind dynamic, he thinks for a really long time and he ends up making the fold. But I crush on this session at the bike too. I end up winning, I think around $1,700. So I won 6K on the day, and it brings me to having a really profitable trip after starting off so tough. And when I started off tough, my mindset was definitely discouraged. I was discouraged for sure, but I held it together and ended up booking around a $5,600 profit on my trip to LA. So I'm happy with that for sure, especially considering how tough the games were at the beginning and how tough things started for me. The other thing I wanted to mention is that Andrew Nemi and Brad Owen have a meetup game on Wednesday, which is 2 days from now. So I figured I would just stick around and join up in their meetup game. I've always wanted to attend, so I think this will be the best opportunity for me to attend. So if you're in Vegas this Wednesday coming up, check me out there. If I don't see you guys there, I will see you in a poker room near you. Thanks, guys. But he was like, yo, why did you leave your suitcase at my house? And I'm like, that's a good question. I have no idea. So anyways, I'm almost to Vegas with no suitcase, no clothes other than what I'm wearing on my back. I'll figure it out. 5 days in Vegas. I'll be able to either get the suitcase or get some more clothes. It'll be all right.